For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a skein and a half of Caron 1 pound in soft gray mix and a little of lavender blue. As for tools, a 6.5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, tape measure, and a tapestry needle. There's an optional written pattern that can help out too. Link in the description if you'd like to grab that and follow along. We're using 4 stitches for this project and they will be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size and be explained how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're first going to grab our category 4 yarn, make a slip knot, grab our 6.5mm hook, and start off by making a chain that goes from underarm down to where you want the bottom of the top to be. And for me, that's a total of 15 inches or 38 centimeters, so that's about 50 chains. Now that we have our chain, we're going to go in with our first row of slip stitches. So how we start that off is by blocking off that last chain that we just made, do a chain up of 1, then into that loop that we blocked off, or the second loop from our hook, we're going to insert our hook. And then from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and that counts as our first slip stitch. Let's do the next one together. We're going to insert our hook into that next available loop in our chain. We're going to yarn over, pull through everything on the hook. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we get to that last loop, because at the end we're going to be doing an increase together. We have just made our way all the way down to the end of our first row of slip stitches, and now that we're here, now we're going to do an increase together. And all that increases is doing an extra chain out of 2 at the very end. So we're going to do a chain up of 1 and then 2. Once when we have that, we're going to flip our work. And then into that second chain from our hook, we're going to be going in with a slip stitch. So we're skipping this first one, inserting our hook into that second chain's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on the hook. And then once we have that, we're going to go into every loop that we have with back loop slip stitches going all the way back down. And then when we reach the end of our blunt end, I'll meet you guys back. We have just made our way down to the blunt end of our row 2, and as you guys can see, we don't have any more loops left to go into. So all we're going to do from here is do a chain up of 1. Like I said, we are keeping this end blunt. So we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then into that next back loop, we're going to insert our hook with a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through everything. And we're going to do the next one together again into that next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into. Once we get down to this end, which just so happens to be our increase end, we're going to increase with each other just one more time. We're now at the end of row 3 with each other, and this just so happens to be our increase side. So once we get here, we're going to increase together, and all that is do a chain up of 2. Here is 1. Here is 2. We are going to flip our work, and then into that second loop that we have from our hook, we're going to go into that back loop with a slip stitch. Just like that. And then from here, do more back loop slip stitches all the way down once we make it to the end, which is our blunt end. And all we're going to do when we get down to the blunt end is do a chain up of 1, flip your work, and then work your way back with back loop slip stitches, increasing on the same side. And then keep doing this pattern going back and forth until this chunk that we have goes from our underarm to the front of our body. Okay, so I'm coming to you guys from the future really quickly because I want to remind you guys that while you guys are putting this up to yourselves and measuring this to yourselves just to make sure that it fits, make sure that when you do put this up to yourselves, you are stretching it as far as it can go, or stretching it just like how it would if you guys were wearing it. That's why we're using this hook and this stitch, just to make sure that it can be stretched just as much as we need it to be, because we want this to have a certain look. And now I will let you guys get back to the pattern. We are back, and this is what things should be looking like once we have our underarm portion. And just to let you guys know, from this one end down to where I ended, I have a total of 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters or 12 rows in total. And we did end up here on this increase row, and then once we end here, we're going to want to measure this up to the tip of our shoulder so that we can start working on a little shoulder chunk that we're going to have. And I have went ahead and already measured mine out. And from this point, I'm going to make a chain that comes out to 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, or a total of 15 chains. Once we have the chain that is long enough for us, what we're going to do is go in with another row of back loop slip stitches. So we're going to block off that last chain that we just did, do a chain up of 1, and then from here we're going to be going into every back loop with a slip stitch. So into the second chain from our hook, not this first one, but the one that we blocked off with our thumb, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Let's do the next one together. Into that chain, we're going to go into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down, including once we get down to the body. Once we get here, we're going to continue doing back loop slip stitches. And then we're going to keep going back and forth like this until we have a shoulder chunk that fits us. We are back, and this is what we should have, or something that looks like this at least. I finished up doing my shoulder chunk, and that was just rows of back loop slip stitches going back and forth. No increases, no decreases, no nothing. And I just wanted to let you guys know, from this first row of chains that we did over here, over to where I ended, I have a total of 1 inch or about 3 centimeters. And then what I have in its entirety is 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Or if you guys are following along with the pattern, I have rows 1 through 20 right here. So next we're going to get started on the little neck scoop that we're going to have, and this is going to be all dependent on you guys. What I did was I put this up to myself, this being up to my shoulder, and then I did a measurement from here down to about where my collarbone is, and then we're going to do just a little scoop, go straight across, and then do another little, I guess the other side of the scoop, and then we're going to do the other shoulder chunk on this side, and then continue on from there. So from where the tip of my shoulder is down to where my collarbone is about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, or also, if you're following along with the pattern, about 9 loops. And then from here, we also made sure that we ended down here on the bottom. And then from here, we're just going to go up with back loop slip stitches all the way up until we get 2 loops right before we hit the stitch marker. And then we're going to be doing a decrease. And then the last thing that I'm going to say right before we get started on doing this next, I guess we're going to call this the collar portion, is that I know that this looks super small, but please, please, please keep in mind that once when we put it up to ourselves, or once when we wear it, it will stretch quite a bit. That's why we're using this 6.5 millimeter hook and using this stitch, because we want to be able to see this really pretty ribbing. So when you guys are measuring this up to yourselves, make sure that you guys are stretching it just like how you would if you would be wearing it. So getting started on the first row of this collar portion, we did end down here on the bottom. So we're going to start this off just like how we normally do. We're going to do a chain up of 1. We're going to flip our work and then just put 1 back loop slip stitch into every loop that we have, going all the way back up towards our stitch marker right here. And then we're going to stop just 2 loops right before our stitch marker so that we can do a decrease into those 2 loops. We have made our way all the way up to our stitch marker, and we have 2 loops right before we get into it. And what we're going to do is do a back loop slip stitch decrease. So what that is we're going to insert our hook into that, I guess, second to last loop, because we're going to count this one as the last. We're going to insert our hook into that second to last back loop, yarn over, pull through, and then we're going to insert our hook into that next back loop. And from here, we're just going to go ahead and yarn over, pull through everything that's on our hook. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 1, 2, and 3 loops. And that's how we decrease for this section. So we have our first decrease for our collar section, and we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then we're only going to be decreasing into every other row. So since we just decreased into this previous row, we did our chain up of 1, flip our work, and then from here we're just going to go down with 1 back loop slip stitch into every loop. So into this first back loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through everything. Insert, yarn over, pull through everything. And that is going to be this row. And we're going to do this down for this row. Once we make it down to our blunt end, we're going to keep this blunt just like how we've been doing. We're going to do a chain up of 1 and then do back loop slip stitches coming all the way back, leaving these last 2 loops that we have because we're going to be doing another decrease, but we'll meet each other back so that we can do that together. So we are back with our next row of back loop slip stitches. We have done our chain up of 1 on this side, worked our way all the way up, leaving the last 2 loops that we have right here. And then we're going to do another decrease into here together, and then I'll let you guys have at this for just a little bit. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into that next back loop, or the second to last back loop. We're going to yarn over, pull through, and then into that last back loop. We're going to yarn over and then pull through all 3 loops on our hook, just like that. And then since we're here, we're just going to start off the next row. We're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then this row will have nothing since we're working our way down towards the base. We're going to be going in with just 1 back loop into every stitch. And then I'll meet you guys back once we have just a little bit of this done. So we're back with just this little chunk that we have that goes around our neck. And the place that I stopped at was actually just within just a few rows from where we started. So in total, I have 26 rows, but this little chunk that we have right here, for me, it's just about 1 inch or 3 centimeters. And it's this small because this is forming our neck hole. And I don't want this to go around too deep because this will have a cowl, obviously. I made this just about where I would wear a regular crew neck. So this is all going to be dependent on you guys. You guys could have yours higher, lower. This can decrease more if you guys want to. That is completely up to you. But from 26 rows in total, and just having this little chunk right here, I am very happy with this outcome. So from here, we're actually just going to go straight across for just a little bit, going across our chest until we need to mirror everything that we have right here. So since we're here, all we're going to do is do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then for the next few rows that we're going to have, we're just going to go back and forth with back loop slip stitches. No decreases, no increases, no nothing, kind of like how we had when we did our shoulder chunk. We are all back with this front chunk, I guess is what we can call it, and the total that I have from one end to the next is about 7 inches or 18 centimeters, or just this little chunk that I have that we just did our back loop slip stitches, no fancy stitches right here, is about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. And I have a total of 39 rows from here all the way down to here. And I put this up to myself, and this is fitting perfectly, remembering, I'm going to keep reminding you guys because I forget sometimes, but remembering that when you put it up to yourself, it does stretch quite a bit. And then when we get to whatever size we need, we're going to basically do everything that we did here onward, just on the other side. So they're going to be the opposite, but the same pattern, right? That makes sense? So right here, we had just a few rows of decreases into every other row. We're going to do the same thing right here since we're ready to do that, but they're going to be increases in every other row for the same amount of rows that we have right here. And then we're going to do the shoulder chunk after that, and then do our underarm portion on the other side of that. We're going to be together for the entire time, but just want to tell you guys the game plan. But now that we're ready to get started on this side, we did end up here, which is where we need to start, so that we can start doing our increases for this little curve that we're going to have. And if you guys have the measurement that you guys want, but you guys end on the bottom, you guys can definitely do an extra row of back loop slip stitches coming back up. It's not that big. So if you guys just add 1 more row, you'll be totally fine. But what we're going to do right here is just increase the same way that we did our increases along the side. So we're going to start off by doing an extra chain out of 2. So right here, we're going to do our chain out of 2 for our increase like we said. We're going to flip our work, and then into that second back loop that we have from our hook, go in with a back loop slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull through everything, and we're going to continue doing this all the way down. Once we make it down to the other end, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then do back loop slip stitches coming back all the way up And then once we bring it back, we are going to do another increase. So an extra chain out of 2, just so that we can match this curve that we have right here. We're back and we now have this little itty bitty curve that we have on this side. And if you guys want to, we can fold this over just to make sure that everything is looking even. Everything should fold over and nothing should be too high, nothing should be too low. And this is perfection. So when we have that all figured out, I have a total of 43 rows from one end down to right here. Once we have that, we're now going to make a chain of our shoulder chunk. And the chain that we're going to make is actually going to be the same amount of loops right here that we skipped down. A couple clips ago I said that I skipped 9 loops. So from here I'm going to make a chain of 9 chains. And while I'm making my chain, I'm just going to let you guys know the length that I have from one end all the way until where we have right here. And I have a total of 8 inches or 20 centimeters. And now that we have our chain, it's going to be pretty similar as to when we do our increases. So from here, this 9 is going to be what we're going into. Once we have our 9 or whatever amount of chains that we have, what we're going to do from here is do an extra chain up of 1. That's just our turning chain. And then into that second loop from our hook, we're going to insert with a back loop slip stitch, just like how we've been doing this entire time. So I will not bore you with that detail. But what we're going to do is go all the way down with back loop slip stitches all the way down our chain, including all the way down to our body, all the way down till we get to the bottom or the blunt end. Once we get down here, we're going to do a chain up of 1, do more back loop slip stitches all the way back, and we're going to keep doing that until we have the same amount of rows that we have right here in our previous shoulder chunk that we have. And then I'll meet you guys back once we have this portion finished up so that we can do our underarm portion right here together. We are now here with our second shoulder chunk, and now we're going to go in with this underarm portion just like how we have along this side. And the only tip that I have for you guys is we're going to need to put our stitch marker in where this shoulder chunk starts over here. So this is going to be a different measurement than we have right here. So the easiest way to go about figuring out where to insert your stitch marker is counting from here, going all the way up. And for me, I went up a total of 15 chains. So on this side, I counted down 15 and then inserted my stitch marker. And then now that we ended down here, I'm going to do a chain up of 1, go in with back loop slip stitches, leaving the last 2 loops, and I'm going to be decreasing into these last 2 loops. And then I'm going to be decreasing into every other row, just like how we have been for the rest of this piece. We've done our back loop slip stitches all the way up until we have 2 loops right before our stitch marker, and just like everything else, we're going to go in with a decrease really quickly together. So we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, and into that last back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And from here, we're going to be decreasing into every other row. So we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and since we're working down towards the bottom of the top, we're not going to be doing anything. So we're just going to go in with 1 back loop slip stitch into every loop that we have. Once we get to the end, we are going to do a chain up of 1, do back loop slip stitches back, leaving the last 2 loops, and then do a back loop decrease. And we're going to keep doing that until we have the same amount of rows that we have right here for this other underarm portion that we have on the other side. And then I will meet you guys back so that we can cut and tie and then get started on the rest. This is what I have when I have finished doing our other underarm portion. And if you guys just want to make sure that everything is looking okay, what we're going to do is fold this in half. And then everything should just lay over it perfectly, mirror it nice and clean. And now that we have this, as you guys can see, I've already cut and tied. We're going to start working on the back portion now. And we're going to get it started together, but the back portion is going to be exactly the same that we have for the front. So same amount of loops, same amount of rows of everything. We're going to start with this underarm portion. Once we have that, we're going to start off by making a shoulder chunk. But for the back, we aren't going to have this gap that we have right here. It's just going to go straight across with back loop slip stitches. And then we are going to mimic the shoulder chunk over here as well. So we're going to just refresh the beginning of this together. So I'm going to make a chain that comes out to the same amount of chains that I have in this first row. I'm going to do an extra chain up of 1, go down with back loop slip stitches, and then we're going to increase together. We're now working on the back half that we have, and like I said in the previous clip, I went in with my first row of chains, did a chain up of 1, and then worked our way back with slip stitches, and we left this last loop to go into, and then also we are going to be doing our increase as well. So into this last loop, we're just going to go in with 1 slip stitch, and then this increase is going to be exactly the same way that we did the increase on the other side. So this is just going to be a chain out of 2, flip our work, and then into that second loop, insert our hook with a slip stitch, just like that. And then from here, do back loop slip stitches going all the way down. Once we make it to the end, we're going to do a chain up of 1, and then work our way back with more back loop slip stitches. Once we get to this increase end, do a chain out of 2, and then work our way back. And we're going to keep going back and forth like that until we have the same amount of rows that we have in this front portion. We're going to want this to match up, and then I'll meet you guys back once when we get here so that we can do our shoulder chunk. We are back, and we now have the same amount of rows as we have for the front portion's underarm portion. If we just want to lay this on top really quickly, it is exactly the same. And now from here, what we're going to do is do the same amount of chains that we did from this point up to the tip of our shoulder right here. So for the front portion, I made a chain up of 15 or 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. So that's what I'm going to do right here. Now that we have our chain, yours can be whatever size you guys need, but now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain that we just did, do an extra chain up of 1, and then from here, we're going to go into each back loop with a slip stitch. So into this second loop that we have from our hook, we're going to go down with back loop slip stitches, going all the way back down. So we're going to go down the chain and also down the body, maintaining our back loop slip stitches, going all the way across, like I said earlier, until we reach the other point of our other shoulder chunk right here. And then from there, we'll meet each other back so that we can start off this next underarm portion together. We are back, and we have the majority of this section all finished up. The last part that we have to do is just this under chunk portion that we have right here. And that is going to be exactly the same way that we have done the other side. And I do have the other side underneath just to show you guys that everything is exactly the same size, just like that. But now that we're here, all I'm going to do is go up with my row of back loop slip stitches until we have just 2 loops left right before we reach our stitch marker. And then we're going to do a decrease together, and then we will have at the rest from there. We made our way all the way down until we have just 2 loops left right before we reach our stitch marker, and we're going to decrease together. So all we're going to do is insert our hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, and then into that last back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And then once we have that, we're going to do the same thing that we have for the front portion. So we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip your work, and then while we're going down towards the blunt end, we're going to keep it regular, so we're not going to do any decreases. So in here, we're going to insert into every back loop with a regular back loop slip stitch. Once we get to the end, chain up 1, flip your work, and do back loop slip stitches all the way down until we just have 2 loops left. Do a decrease into those last 2 loops, and then we're going to continue on with that pattern until we have the same size that we have for our underarm portion along this side, and then I'll meet you guys back. We just finished up doing our entire back piece, and this is what things are looking like now that we have both pieces on top of each other. I just wanted to show you guys that they are exactly the same size, and we're also going to need to put them on top of each other so that we can go in with our side seam along here. And all that is just going in with a row of single crochet, making sure that our crochet hook is going in through the front panel and the back panel at the same time. So how we're going to close this off is first by inserting our hook into the front panel's corner, and then right behind it I have my working yarn, so all I'm going to do is attach that onto my hook, and then from here we're just going to pull through. Once we have that, we're going to chain up 1 to secure, and then into this first available loop that we have in the front panel, we're going to insert our hook. There's 1, and then into the next available loop that we have in the back panel, insert, and single crochet. And then once we have that, that's basically going to be it. We're just going to do the next one together really quickly. So into this next available loop, insert, and then into this next available loop in the back panel, insert, and single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we get to the end of this underarm portion. Once we get down here, we're going to cut and tie. We've just finished up seaming up our sides that we have, and now we're just going to do our shoulder chunk together. This is going to be pretty much the same way that we did the side. All we're going to do is insert our hook in through the corner that we have in our front panel, and then also into the corner that we have in our back panel. Insert our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull through, and then we're going to chain up one to secure. Once we have that, we're just going to be going into each loop that we have, once in the front loop and once in the back, making sure that they're the same loop. But the only difference than the side is that this one isn't going to have any actual loops for us to go into, so we're just going to have to eyeball it. So into this first loop that we see into the front panel, and then try to make sure you insert your hook into the same loop that we have in the back panel. I'm going to insert right there and single crochet. Let's do this one more time. Once in the front, once in the back, single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down, and then once we get to the end, we're going to cut and tie, and then the same side seam and shoulder chunk seam that we have, we're going to do it on the other side. We've just finished up seaming both of our ends and also the shoulder chunks, and I have also taken the liberty into doing the other sleeve that we have, just so I can give you the exact measurements now that we're about to do this other sleeve. But the first thing that we're going to do for the sleeve is actually just go into this armhole that we've created for ourselves with a row of single crochet. How we're going to start off this first row of single crochet along our armhole is we're first going to insert our hook into the closest loop that we have right next to our seam right here. We're going to insert our hook into there. Then we're going to take our yarn, insert that onto our hook. We're going to pull through and chain up one to secure. And since we're here, I'm going to go in for this section from where we're at over to where our increased portion ends. I'm going to go in with 10 single crochet. This is going to be different for everyone. This is mainly just for the people that's following the pattern that I have, or if you guys are also making a small. If you guys are making more, then go ahead and add more if you need to. But just make sure that when you have this single crochet count, you keep that in mind, because you want the other side of your increased portion to be exactly the same. So like I said, I'm going to go in with 10 single crochet, and there aren't going to be any real loops for us to go into, so we're just going to have to kind of eyeball it. Now that we just went in with our increase section of single crochet, now we have reached this shoulder chunk that we made for ourselves, and these are all just regular loops. So we're going to go all the way up and over until we reach the other side, just putting one single crochet into every loop. We are back, and we just made it all the way around, putting one single crochet into every loop that we have. And now we are along the other side of our increased portion, or our slant, so right about here. And then once we get here, we just want to make sure that we have the same loop count as we have on the other side. Like I said, I have 10, so I'm going to go in with 10 single crochet going all the way down, and then we're going to slip stitch once when we get to this last loop. Now that we've done our 10 single crochets into all of these loops, we're now at this first one that we have, and now we're going to slip stitch it together. So into this first single crochet that we did, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through everything. And then once when we have that, everything should be all closed up, and now we can go in with our sleeve. Right before we go in with our sleeve, we're going to want to try this on and measure out and see how long we want our sleeve to be. And since our hook is along the bottom, we're going to measure from this point all the way down to where we want our sleeve to end, remembering that we will have a cuff along there as well. So the measurement that I made for myself is 19 inches or 48 centimeters. So that's roughly 57 loops. So I'm going to make a chain of 57. Now that we have our chain for our sleeve, what we're going to do from here is block off that last chain that we did, do a chain up of 1, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to be going in with a slip stitch, just like the body. So from here, we're going to insert our hook into that loop, yarn over, pull through everything on the hook. Let's do the next one together. Going to insert, yarn over, pull through. And we're going to keep putting one slip stitch into every loop that we have, going all the way down until we reach that last loop, because we're going to be doing an increase of 2 in there together. We've just slip stitched our way all the way down our chain, and now we have just one loop left, and what we're going to do is do an increase of 2. So into that last loop, we're going to go in with one slip stitch, and then into that same loop, we're going to go in with just one more. And this part could be a little tricky, but just bear with me. Insert, yarn over, pull through everything, just like that. And once we have that, now we're going to attach it into the base, and how we do that is take a look at the next available loop that we have. We're going to insert our hook into that loop with a slip stitch, attaching this row to the base, and then once we have that, we're going to need to attach our next row. So to work our way up to the next row, we're going to slip stitch up one more loop into the base. We're going to flip our work and then go back down with back loop slip stitches, but increasing into the first. So into this first back loop that we have right here, we're going to insert our hook with one slip stitch, and then into that same loop, go in with just one more slip stitch, just like that. So now we have 2. This is our first increase of 2. And then go all the way down, putting one slip stitch into every back loop that we have. Once we make it to the end, we're going to do a chain up of 1, work our way back down with back loop slip stitches, remembering to increase into this last loop, which is just 2 slip stitches into that last back loop, and then attach it into the base like normal. You guys already know how to do this. We've done this probably a million times now. So go ahead and keep doing this all the way up our work that we have until we get to this middle point in our shoulder portion. And then I'll meet you guys back so that we can work our way back down. We're basically going to be doing the same thing, but instead of increases at the base, we're going to be doing decreases since we'll be working downwards. But I'll meet you guys back when we get there. So we are back, and we have just finished doing one entire half of our sleeve. And now we're going to start doing the other side of our sleeve, which is exactly the same thing that we've been doing, but instead of increases, we're going to be doing decreases. So I'm just going to work my way back up, and then once we have the last 2 loops in this row, I'll meet you guys back so that we can decrease together. So we are back, and like I said, we are all ready to get started doing the other side, going down with some decreases. And as you guys can see really quickly, the next loop that I have into this shoulder chunk is actually on the other side of this shoulder seam that we have, and as you guys can tell, I went down with more back loop slip stitches until I have just 2 loops left. And that's what you guys are going to want to do if you guys ended on the opposite side down here, like how I did. If you guys were lucky enough to just keep working your way up and then you guys ended on this side, when it comes to being on this side of the shoulder seam, you guys are totally fine. Just work your way up to this row and then we're all going to decrease together. But now that we are here, what we're going to do is insert our hook into the 2 loops that we have that's right next to the base. And this is going to be the same whether if you guys are going in towards the base or out towards the base. Just the 2 loops that's right next to it, we're going to combine those to make a decrease. So how we do a decrease really quickly is inserting our hook into that second to last loop, yarn over, pull through, and then into that last loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And that's how we decrease over here. I'm sure you guys already know how because we did a bunch of these already, but just wanted to give you guys a really quick refresher. But once we have that, we're going to insert our hook into that next loop that we have with a slip stitch. And now this other side is starting to form. And then now we can just keep doing the same pattern going all the way down. So into this next loop, we're going to insert our hook with a slip stitch that works our way up to the next row. And then we're going to flip our work. Once we have that, we're going to be decreasing into the first 2 back loops that we have. So we'll start that off together. We're going to yarn over, pull through, insert into that next loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down, going back and forth, remembering to decrease into the 2 back loops that's closest to the base until we don't have any more loops left to go into, until we get all the way down here, and then we'll meet each other back so that we can seam up the sleeve so that we can get started on the cuff right after that. We've just finished up doing our entire sleeve, and if you guys take a look at the base, we don't have any more loops to go into. So now that we are here, we're going to go all the way down with a row of single crochet, making sure we're going in through the front loop and the back loop at the same time. So how that works is we're going to insert our hook in through the first available loop that we have in the back panel. Since our working yarn is already in the front panel, we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. And then we're just going to do the first one together because this is basically going to be the same thing as how we did the sides. We're just going to insert our hook into the first available loop in the front panel, and then insert our hook into the first available loop that we have in the back panel, and from there single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we get to the end, and then once we get to the inner end we are going to slip stitch into the body portion, but we'll meet each other back so that we can do that together. We finished up going all the way down with our seam going all the way down our sleeve, and now we're at the body portion. And then once we get here, what we're going to do is find a loop that isn't going to peek through the front portion, and then we're going to seam it in together. So all that is basically finding one of these loops. What I like to do is actually reach all the way over here to the seam that we have in the body. And then once we reach there, then we go in with a slip stitch, and that will just close in any gaps that we have, making sure that everything looks nice and clean under our underarm. But once we're there, we're going to insert our hook, chain up 1 and cut, and then we're going to reattach our yarn onto this outer end so that we can get started on our cuff. Getting started on the cuff, we're going to grab our same color that we've been using this entire time, and then we're going to go in with a row of single crochet along the bottom so that this can be cleaned up a little bit so that we can go in with our secondary color afterwards. So what we're going to do from here is take a look at where our seam is along the bottom, and then insert our hook into that loop that we have right next to it, pull through, and then we're going to chain up 1 to secure. And then from here we're going to put 1 single crochet into every kind of loop that we have going all the way around. And I'm going to show you which loops I'm going into. If we pull our work apart a little bit, you can see this is our first back loop slip stitch row, and this is our next back loop slip stitch row, and there's going to be this bigger gap in between that we can go into right here. I'm going to insert my hook into there and go in with a single crochet, and that's where I will be single crocheting down this entire portion of our cuff. Then once we make it to the end, we're going to slip stitch into that first loop. We are back, and we are going to slip stitch into this first loop that we made for ourselves. So we're going to insert our hook into that loop, yarn over, pull through everything. We're going to chain up 1 and cut, and then from here we're going to grab our secondary color and then go in with another row of single crochet directly on top of this one. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into any one of these loops. It doesn't matter which one. We're going to insert our secondary color, pull through, chain up 1 to secure once we have that, and we're going to put 1 single crochet into every loop that we have going all the way across. Once we beat our first loop that we made for ourselves, we're going to go in with a slip stitch, chain up 1 and cut, and then we're going to do that one more time with our secondary color. So we're going to have a row of our first color, a row of our secondary color, a row of our first color again, and then we're going to switch it out for our secondary color after that. But once we have that 4th row, we will not be cutting and tying, because with that secondary color we're going to be going in with our cuff. So I'll meet you guys back once we have that done. We've just finished up going in with our rows of 4 single crochets. So just as a recap, we have 1 row of our first color, 1 row of our secondary color, switched out back for our first color, and now we're at our secondary color because we want our cuff to be our secondary color just like this. And once we have this, we're going to want to figure out how long we want our cuff to be. So I've already measured mine out. I want mine to be about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, and that comes out to roughly 6 loops. So that's the amount of chains that I'm going to make. Now that I have my amount of chains, what we're going to do is go all the way down with our row of slip stitches. So we're going to block off that last loop, do a chain up of 1, and then we're going to insert our hook into that loop that we blocked off, or the second loop from our hook, with a slip stitch. So we're going to insert and pull through everything. And then from here, we're going to go all the way down our chain that we just made, putting 1 slip stitch into every loop. And now that we just went all the way down with our row of slip stitches, we're going to slip stitch into that next available loop that we have so that we can close off this row. So into this next loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, and pull through, and that's how we close off this row. And this next row, how we work our way up, we're going to slip stitch up the next loop, flip our work, and then into every back loop that we have, we're going to be going in with a back loop slip stitch. So basically the same pattern that we've been doing for the body portion. And we're going to keep doing this all the way around until we don't have any more loops left to go into, and then we're going to close it off together. We've just made our way all the way around with our cuff, doing our back loop slip stitches going all the way around, and we don't have any more loops to go into. So now all we're going to do is connect the two, panels that we have together, or the two ends, with a seam. And the seam is going to be pretty much the same seam that we have along here and along the sides as well. We also want to make sure that all the seams are facing the same direction, because we don't want to flip our work inside out and then have one seam sticking out and the rest in, or something like that. So just make sure that everything is facing the same direction. But once when we know that, what we're going to do is just do the first one together, because we have done this a bunch of times already. So all we're going to do is insert our hook into the first available loop in the front panel, and then into the next available loop that we have into the back panel. If you guys can see, it's this one right here. Once we have that, we're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, single crochet, and we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into. Once we make it to the end, we're going to cut and tie. So we have just made our way all the way down with our single crochet, connecting our front panel to our back panel for our cuff. And at this point, go ahead and do everything that we did for our sleeve along the other side. As you guys can tell, I already have mine done. And once when you guys have both of them done, we can now start working on the bottom border. Okay, so we are ready to get started on the bottom border. And the first thing that we're going to do is just go in with our base color with a row of single crochet. And this is going to be exactly the same exact way that we have done our cuff. So we're going to go in with a row of single crochet with our base color, another single crochet row of our secondary color, another row of our base color, just like this. And then we're going to go in with our secondary color again, but we're not going to cut and tie that one because we're going to go in with the cuff together. So I'll meet you guys back once when we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows done, but in that 4th row, don't cut and tie. We've just finished up going in with our 4 rows right before we get started on our bottom border. And once when we have this all finished up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to measure out and see how long we want our bottom border to be. And I actually want mine to be about the same length as my cuff. So I'm going to go in with about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, or start off by making a chain of 6. And once when we have our chain, what we're going to do is block off that last chain, do a chain up of 3 because that counts as a double crochet. From there, we're going to prepare for a double crochet, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the 4th loop from our hook, we're going to go in with a double crochet. And that is our first double crochet. We'll do the next one together. We're going to prepare, insert into that next loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And from there, we're just going to put 1 double crochet into every loop that we have, going back down our chain. And then we meet each other back so that we can connect it into the base together. We have our first row of double crochet of our bottom border all finished up. And once we have this, we're going to need to take a look at the base and count out the next 2 available loops that we have so that we can connect this one row. So we're going to count up 1, 2 loops, insert our hook into that second loop with a slip stitch, and now this first row is connected. And to work our way up to the next row, we're going to slip stitch up the next 2 loops that we have, flip our work, and we're going to go in with back loop double crochet so that we can have just a little bit of ribbing along the bottom border as well. So we're going to prepare for a double, insert our hook into that back loop that we have, and then do a double crochet. And we're going to keep doing this all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into this previous row. We're going to do a chain up of 3, flip our work, and then do more back loop double crochets. And then once you guys make it over to the base, we're going to count up the next 2 available loops. So here's 1, here's 2, slip stitch into that second to close off that row. And then to work our way up to the next row, we're going to slip stitch up the next 2 loops after that. And then keep doing back loop double crochets back and forth like that until we've gone all the way around the bottom border, until we don't have any more loops left to go into, and then we'll meet each other back so that we can seam this up together. We've just made our way all the way around with our bottom band, and now we're just going to connect the front panel to the back panel, and we're only going to do the first one together because we've done this a bajillion times. But the only tip that I have for you guys is making sure that you guys are making your seam on the same side as the seams that you guys have for your top. You just want to make sure that everything is on the same side. But you guys can figure all that out by yourselves. But once we have that, what we're going to do from here is insert our hook into this first available loop in the front panel. And then insert our hook into the next available loop in the back panel. And then we're going to single crochet. And that is it. Go ahead and keep doing this until we don't have any more loops left to go into. Go ahead and cut and tie, and then I'll meet you guys back. So we have just finished up doing our bottom border, and now we are ready to get started on the neck portion. So the first thing that we're actually going to do is just go into our neck portion that we have so far with a row of single crochet, just going all the way around, and then once we meet back to our first loop that we made for ourselves, we're going to do a slip stitch. So this part's going to be fairly simple, so I will let you guys have at it, and then I'll meet you guys back. We just went all the way around with our first row of single crochet, and now we're going to go around with 2 more rows of single crochet, but the third row is going to be back loop single crochets. So in order to do our next rows, what we're going to need to do is just insert our hook in through any one of these loops, grab our yarn, insert that onto our hook, we're going to pull through, and we're going to do a chain up of 1. And then from here, we're going to go all the way around with another row of single crochet. We're going to attach it into the first loop that we just did with a slip stitch, and the row after that is going to be back loop single crochets, which is the same thing, just working into the back loops, but I will meet you guys back so that we can do that row together. Working our way up to our next single crochet row, what we're going to do from here is do a chain up of 1, and then do the same thing, just go into the back loops with more single crochets. So here is a single crochet into every back loop going all the way across. Once we make it down to that first loop that we made for ourselves, we're going to go in with a slip stitch, but don't cut and tie because we're going to go straight into the cowl from there. We just made it all the way back around with our row of back loop single crochets, and now that we have this loop all finished up, we're going to go in with our cowl. And from here, we're going to want to figure out how long we want the cowl to be, how long we want it to come up and over. And I've already measured mine out. I'm going to make mine about 9 inches or 23 centimeters, or that comes out to about 25 chains. Now that we have our chain for the cowl, what we're going to do is block off that last chain that we just did, do a chain up of 3 that counts as a double crochet. We're going to prepare for a double crochet, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the 4th loop from our hook, we're going to go in with a double crochet. Now this is going to be pretty much exactly the same as how we did our bottom band. We're just going to double crochet all the way down our chain. Once we make it to the base, we're going to count up 2 loops, slip stitch into that second loop, and then that closes off that row. And then from there, we're going to slip stitch up the next 2 loops to start off the next row, and then we're going to work back down with back loop double crochets. And we're going to keep going back and forth just like that until we don't have any more loops left to go into, and then we'll meet each other back so that we can close this off together. We have just finished up doing our cowl. We made it all the way around with our rows of back loop double crochets, and we don't have any more loops left to go into the base. So the next thing that we're going to do is just seam up these 2 panels that we have, the front and the back panel, forming a seam, and then once we have that, we can fold it over to form our cowl. So we're ready to seam up the sides, and the only tip that I have for you guys is to make sure that the seam that we're doing is aligning along the outside of our sweater that we have. And when I say along the outside, our seams for the body portion is on the inside, and we're doing it this way so that once we have the seam for the neck portion, Once we fold it over, we don't see it. But once when we are making sure that we're going the right way, what we're going to do is insert our hook into that first available loop in the front panel, and into that next available loop in the back panel, and single crochet. So exactly the same way that we've been doing the body and pretty much everything else so far. Go ahead and keep doing this all the way down, and once when you guys make it to the end, don't cut and tie because we do need to go in with a couple more rows of single crochet along the edges just to make it clean. But if your guys are going the opposite way, going along down this way, once when you guys get down here with no more loops left to go into, do a chain up one and cut, and then reattach your yarn onto this end over here. Now that we've made our way all the way over to this end right here, what we're going to do is go into the row of single crochet, and that's going to be fairly easy. All we're going to do is do a chain up of one, and then we're going to go in with 2 single crochet into each side double crochet. So we're going to go into that first side double crochet loop with 1 and 2 single crochet. Let's do the next one together as well. Let's go in with 1 and 2 single crochet. We're going to keep doing this all the way down. Once we make it back to that first chain up of 1 that we did, we're going to slip stitch into that loop, chain up 1 and cut, and then we're going to go around just one more time, but with our secondary color, so my purple, and that's just going to be a row of single crochet, putting 1 single crochet into every loop that we have. So nothing fancy, and then once you guys make it around to the end, do a slip stitch, chain up 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. So we have just finished up doing our 2 rows of single crochets along our cowl that we had. Our first row of single crochets was our base color, which is the gray, and then we just went in with a row of single crochet with our secondary color directly on top of that, and we have cut and tied, and now we are ready to go in with our hood. And the first thing that I need to tell you guys when we're going into our hood is that we're going to be working into the loops that we have left for ourselves when we did that row of back loop single crochets when we were just going around the collar. You see all these loops that we have left for ourselves doing that? This is where we're going to be working into. And then some more steps that we're going to need to do right before we get started is eyeball it and figure out where the middle portion is, and we're going to insert our stitch marker into that middle loop. And then from there we're going to count out 4 loops and then insert our next stitch markers on both sides. So as you guys can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, inserted this stitch marker, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, inserted this next stitch marker. And this little gap that we have right here is actually going to be for a little color border that we're going to have for the hood. That's basically going to be the same thing that we have for the cuffs and for the bottom of this top. So just to give you guys a heads up, it's going to be purple, gray, and then this is going to be where our hood starts. We're going to go all the way around, and then same thing along this side, purple, gray, and then this is where we're going to start the hood on this side as well. So we're going to pick one of these stitch markers, it doesn't matter which one, and we're going to start off by inserting our hook in through that loop. We can take this stitch marker out, we're going to grab our yarn, insert it, and do a chain up of 3 because that's going to count as a double crochet. We have inserted our hook into that loop and did a chain up of 3 that counts as a double crochet. And then into each of these loops that we have, we're going to be putting 1 double crochet into the next 5 loops. And this chain up of 3 already counts as 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 right here. And into the 6, we're going to be doing an increase of 2. So into this next loop that I have, I'm going to insert my hook with 1 double crochet into that loop, and then into that same loop, we're going to be going in with another one. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Into the 6, we do an increase. And we're going to maintain this pattern going all the way around until we reach our next stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys back just so that we can start up the next row and then go from there. We are back with doing the first row of our hood where we did an increase into the 6th loop with our double crochets, and from here until we need to stop, we're going to continue on doing the same pattern. So we're going to start this up with each other just as a quick refresher, and then I'll let you guys have at it. So how we work our way up to the next row is doing a chain up of 3. we're going to flip our work, and then this chain up of 3 does count as a double crochet, so we're going to prepare for a double. Insert into that next loop with a double crochet. So far we have 2 double crochets, and now we will have 3, 4, 5, and then into the 6. We're going to do the same deal as before, increase into that 6. So we're going to put 2 double crochets, oops, into that 6th loop. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And then we will be increasing like this for the rest of this row and for the next few rows until this gets as wide as you guys need. I'm going to keep going just like this for 4 rows, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do the rest of this together. So we are back, and this is what we have so far. We have our 4 rows of our regular double crochets where we increase into every 6 into each of these rows. And just to let you guys know, I have a total of about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. But once when we have this chunk, or whatever size you guys need, depending on how big you guys want your hood to be, once we have that size, we're just going to go straight up with rows of double crochet, putting 1 into every loop, just going back and forth until we have the height that we need. So to start off those rows, it's going to start off just like the rest. We're going to start off with a chain up of 3, and then just go in with 1 double crochet into every loop. We've just come back with the main portion of our hood all finished, and this is what it looks like on the side. From the bottom all the way up to where I have finished, I have a total of 20 rows or 14 inches or 36 centimeters. And then once we have that, now we can connect the top of our hood together to close it off. And since our top should be faced right side out, how we're going to do the top portion is, so that we don't have to flip everything inside out, is we're going to pinch the 2 corners that we have, and then with our other hand we're going to grab this back half, and then we're going to pull this through. Once when it's pulled through this way, we're going to take these 2 corners that we have and then just flip them over the other way so that this line that we have is all facing one direction. And then we're going to go in this way with our row of single crochet so that once we flip it inside out and wear it, the seam will be along the inside. And from here, to connect these 2 panels together, I'm sure you guys already know, we're going to make sure that our hook goes in through the front panel and in through the back panel, and we're going to single crochet all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into. Once we get down here, we're going to cut and tie. We've just finished up seaming up our hood, and this is what it's looking like along the bottom. As you guys can see, it's flipped right side out, and this is what it looks like now. And once when we have this, we're going to go back to these loops that we left for ourselves right into the neck portion, and we're just going to go around with rows of single crochet in our alternating colors so that we can have a little border. The color that we're going to start with is going to be the same color that we used for our hood. So since my hood is gray, I'm going to first go in with my gray yarn. And what we're going to do is take a look at any one of these sides, doesn't matter which one. But we're going to insert our hook into that next available loop that we have that doesn't have anything into it. As you guys can see, this one has our first chain up of 3 in it. So we're just going to insert our hook into that next loop, insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through. Once we have that, we're going to do a chain up of 1 to secure that in. And then now we're going to be working into our side double crochets. So into this first chain up of 3, but also mainly side double crochet, we're just going to be going in with 2 single crochets into each of those. So into here, we're going to go in with 1, there we go, and 2. And once we have those 2, we're going to jump over to this next side double crochet, go in with 2 single crochet. And then we're going to keep doing this all the way around the hood until we get to this last side double crochet along this side. And then we'll meet each other back so that we can slip stitch it into this next available loop that we have into the neck. We've just made our way all the way back down to this side of our loop that we have. We have a single crochet going around the entirety of our hood. And now that we're here into this next available loop that we have, we're going to go in with a slip stitch. Once we have that, we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. And from here, the rest of this is going to be exactly the same. We're just going to start the next row off with each other, and then we'll go along from there. But what we're going to do is grab our next color, insert our hook into the next available loop that we have, because we just went into this one. So we're going to be inserting our hook into this loop, inserting our hook into there, yarn over, pull through, chain up 1 to secure. Once we have that, we're going to be going in with rows of single crochet, just putting 1 into every loop, going all the way around. Once we reach this last loop that we have over here, slip stitch into this next loop that we have into the neck. Switch out our colors and then keep going back and forth like that until we have 4 rows of single crochet. Now that we have our border for our hood all finished up, the next thing that we have to do is go in with a drawstring. And this is just a regular chain that I made combining both of the colors that we have. And then I just made sure that it was long enough to fit up and around the entirety of our hood border that we have. And now we can interweave it into the hood border that we just made for ourselves. The easiest way to go about doing this is actually using a tapestry needle, but if you guys don't have one, that's totally fine. You guys can use your hooks as well. But the only thing that I'm going to do is basically just take a look at this row that we have right in between the second and the third row that we just made for ourselves. And then right into there, we're going to insert our hook. Underneath, we're actually going to be going underneath about 3 of our loops. So here's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to bring my needle up underneath that third, pull through to leave a little bit of slack on the end. And then all I'm going to do from here is just skip 1 and then insert my hook. And then all I'm going to do is skip 1 and then insert my needle into the one right after that. And then we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, bring our needle up under that third one, and then pull through. And we're doing it this way so that we don't see too much of our drawstring along the hood. We just want it to be able to function while we wear it. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. We've just finished up doing our drawstring, making sure that it went all the way around our hood border. And the next thing and last thing we're going to do is going to be the hoodie pocket that we're going to have. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is measure out and see how long we want it, how tall we want it, and then also, you know, when you wear a hoodie pocket, there's that little chunk that is still connected along each side so that nothing falls out of the pocket. We're going to want to figure out that length as well. And just to let you guys know, I have already measured mine out, and the length that I want for the base is 11 inches or 28 centimeters. And then the height, which is that little chunk that we're going to have on the side that's still connected, is going to be a total of 2.5 inches or 7 centimeters. And then the full height of our pocket will be about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So to start this off, we're first going to start off by making that little chunk that we're going to have that's going to be still connected. So I'm going to make a chain that comes out to about 2.5 inches or 7 centimeters. So that's about 7 chains. Now that we have our 10 chains, what we're going to do, it's actually going to be pretty similar to doing the body. We're going to block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1, and then go in with slip stitches all the way until we get to the end of this chain, and then we're going to be doing an increase together at the end. We are at our last loop, and what we're going to do from here is do a chain up of 2. That's going to be our increase. We're going to flip our work, and then into that second loop that we have from our hook, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop with a back loop slip stitch, just like that. And then we're going to work our way back down, putting 1 slip stitch into every back loop that we have. Once we make it down to the end, this part is going to be blunt, so we're just going to do a chain up of 1 and then work our way back. And we're going to keep doing increases like this until we get half of the height of the pocket that we want, and then we'll meet each other back so that we can do the rest together. So we've just gone in with our few rows of back loop slip stitches all the way up until we got to about halfway of the height that we want the actual pocket to be. Like I said, I want my pocket to be a total of 6 inches. So this that I have right here is about 3. So once we have this, we're going to make a chain up that will equal to 6 inches. And that additional length comes out to about 12 chains. Once we have that chain, the rest of this is going to be exactly the same. We're going to block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1. We're going to insert our hook into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, with a slip stitch. And from here, we will be going back and forth with back loop slip stitches all the way until we get to the majority of the length that we want our pocket to be. And then once we get to that length, we're going to do another one of these decrease, guys, along the other side so that it can match. So I'll meet you guys back when I have that done. We now have the majority of our pocket all finished up, and the next thing that we have to do is basically do this next chunk that we have over here, but along this side. So what you're going to need to figure out is count out these loops that you guys did right after we did our increases. So whatever amount of loops that you guys have over here, you're going to mark off those same amount of loops with your stitch marker. And then since we're here, we are going to make sure that we have ended on our bottom side, but since we're here, we're just going to go back in with back loop slip stitches until we're just 2 loops away, and then we're going to be doing a decrease into those last 2 loops right before the stitch marker. And now that we're here, we have the last 2 loops right before we reach our stitch marker, and now we're going to decrease together. So we're going to insert our hook into that loop, yarn over, pull through, and into that last back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Once we have that, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then since we're working our way down towards the blunt end, we will not be doing a decrease. So for this row, we're just going to go in with 1 back loop slip stitch into every loop that we have. Once we make it to the end, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then work our way back, leaving the last 2 loops and decreasing into those last 2 back loops. And we're going to keep going back and forth like that until we have a chunk that is the same size as this chunk that we have right here, and then we can do a little bit of detail and then attach it onto our top. We've just finished up doing our little chunk right here that is the same as this side. And if you guys want, we can fold this in half. Just make sure that everything is fitting on top of each other, and it is. So once we have that, we're now just going to go in with a row of single crochet going up this curve that we have and across the top. Well, actually just across the whole thing. So we're just going to go all the way up and around everything that we have so far. So this part's going to be pretty simple. What we're going to do is do a chain up of 1, and then there is absolutely no real loops for us to go into, so we're just going to have to eyeball it going all the way around the pocket. And then once we get to the end, we're going to slip stitch into that first loop that we made for ourselves, and then we're going to cut and tie. We're going to do a little bit of detail, and then we'll be good with this guy. We've made our way all the way around with our row of single crochet, and we have met up at our first loop, did a chain up 1 and cut. And now we're just going to do a little bit of detailing, which is taking our secondary color, and then we're just going to go along this curve that we have right here from this point up to this point with our secondary color, and then the same thing on this side. And this part is going to be open. This is going to be where your hands go into your pocket, and then every other part of this will be connected to the top. And this part's going to be super simple, nothing fancy at all. We're just going to start this off together and let you guys have at the rest, and then do the other side by yourselves. But all we're going to do is insert our hook into this corner loop, pull through, do a chain up of 1, and we're just going to go in putting 1 single crochet into every loop that we have, going all the way up to this point right here, chain up 1 and cut, and then do the same thing along this side, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can connect everything together. So we are back, and we have just finished up going in with our little detail that we have for our pocket, and this next part I'm going to actually leave up to you guys to do. The only thing that I will be saying is that any edges where there is gray or your base color, that's going to be where you're going to connect the pocket onto the body portion. And I'm only having you guys do this part by yourself because I'm just going to be going in with my tapestry needle, and I don't have any real techniques on how to do it. Just kind of sew your way through, cut and tie, and do the same thing along the bottom, and then this will be all attached. So I'll meet you guys back when this is all attached so that we can do whatever else we need to do. We've just finished putting in our pocket, and we are all done with this hoodie. And the last thing that we just have to do is weave in all of our ends. We have just finished weaving in the ends, and this is our long-awaited hoodie all finished up. There has been quite a few requests for a hoodie, and here it is. I know I say this for nearly everything about how cozy these pieces are, but this really, really is super cozy, along with it being one of the greatest things ever because it has both pockets and a hood. But if you like this piece and would like to support or purchase this hoodie, links to our Poshmark, Depop, and Etsy are down in the description, along with the written pattern on Etsy. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and leave a comment telling us your favorite part. But if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but let us know why you gave it a thumbs down because we're always looking to improve. If you love it, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can know when there's new uploads for you. And be sure to share us with your friends on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. The links to our platforms will be in the description, so be sure to stop by and say hi. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.